Hi, this is Desmond Child, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any pod catchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, soon to be coming back to downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
songwriter extraordinaire Desmond Child.
He's written songs for Kiss,
Aerosmith,
Bon Jovi,
Alice Cooper,
Cher,
Ricky Martin,
Meatloaf,
Joan Jett,
The Scorpions,
Weezer,
Katy Perry,
and Ava Max.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we could just keep going on.
We didn't even put a dent into to the amount of contributions he's done for artists.
But yeah, I mean, what an amazing songwriter and the soundtrack to many of our lives. I mean, you didn't grow up in the 80s or 90s without, or even all the way to today, without having some kind of influence of Desmond Child's writing.
And he's still writing number one songs today.
Yeah.
I mean, what an amazing career. And one of the biggest reasons why he came on the Nothing Shocking podcast, he was promoting his first band's re-releases, Desmond Child and Rouge.
Yeah, they had two albums that came out in the 70s, late 70s, and they just re-released them, and what a great surprise, and I recommend people go out there and listen to them.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic stuff. I suggest, if you are not familiar with Desmond Child and Rouge, to get in touch with Desmond Child and Rouge. Get on YouTube, whatever you have to do.
Yeah. And
then get on Wikipedia and follow his career and start listening to some of the songs that he's written for artists.
Yeah. Well, the fun project for me was I was telling you earlier, Eric, was, I'm going through Wikipedia and the song, it's kind of, Wikipedia is chronological from start to top, listing his songs.
Yep.
I actually went through and picked out, okay, I'm going to write down all the Kiss songs and all the Alice Cooper songs. And it was kind of fun to put together, like, God, I could make my own mixtape of greatest hits of each band and make my own greatest hits of Desmond Child songs per band. It's just amazing.
And that's what he did, man. That's what he did for artists. He gave artists songs to be played on the radio or on MTV.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing career that man has had. And what a great interview.
Yeah.
Personable, great storyteller. I mean, I can't talk enough about how how much of a great guest he was for us.
Yeah, this is exciting.
It was. And I want everybody to take pleasure in this interview because I really believe that having Desmond Child on the Nothing Shocking podcast was like a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Yeah.
What do we agree?
Oh, yeah. I was pretty giddy that night.
I was, too. So, anyway, hey, let's not wait around. Let's get to this interview.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Desmond, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce to you my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Hey, Desmond. It's great to talk to you tonight.
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome.
Well, the snow's melting here. That's really good. So
starting to see green grass out there.
So we are encroaching 1 year of the COVID-19 pandemic anniversary. How have you been keeping yourself busy during this time of obscurity, I guess?
Well, I really haven't been that affected, career-wise or anything like that, because, I put out records.
Mm-hmm.
I had a #1 record with Ava Max for 7 weeks called Kings and Queens.
Yeah.
And, I put out a record with the Countess Luann of the Real Housewives of New York City called Viva la Diva. And then Desmond Child and Rouge, we came out with a reissue of our original 2 albums. And those like sound amazing. And then we recorded our first single called Our Love Is Insane in a faster tempo, and it was like we made it more like a dance record, a contemporary dance record. So it was recorded from scratch. We sung everything again.
Oh, really?
So I kind of joke. I say, when the world goes low, I go high.
Yeah. That's cool.
Fantastic. Well, you're almost stealing my questions as you answered the first one. So let's kind of go back to October of 2020. Desmond Child and Rouge reunited to release the self-titled album and Runners in the Night. What was the driving force to breathe new life into those albums?
Well, I had bought the masters back from Capitol like 10 years ago. But it was kind of like, I think it took us performing 3 years ago at Studio 54 when I decided to, perform again. Mm-hmm. And I did a kind of a small cabaret show of, all my most famous songs and also favorite songs that I, even by other people that I wanted to sing. And then almost, right before the encore, like right at the end of the show, I invited Rouge to come up and sing with me, and we did a medley of Laura Nyro songs, and we did Our Love Is Insane. We did all these things, and we had such a ball getting back together, and it was just like the old times, just like making crazy jokes and falling on the floor laughing, like with tears in our eyes and our stomachs hurting. I hadn't really laughed like that, and I can't even remember when. And so then we said, let's just start making music again. And so we've been recording new songs, and we're getting ready to release a first single in another couple months. Not a first, but I mean, we did Our Love Is Insane, which is, I guess that was our first single, but the first single of new music that no one's ever heard before, and that's going to come out in like 2 months on BMG. And we're just going to, we're not worrying about anything. We're just going to drop singles into the Spotify space, and Pandora space, Tidal space, and just let the good times roll. And then eventually, it'll add up, all the different songs we do. And I guess that'll be an album. And then we'll keep going because it's fun. And truly, when Rouge sings, it's a very unique sound. And, I have to say, like, even with my own singing, I think I'm singing better than I did ever before. I mean, it was called Desmond Child and Rouge, but I actually wasn't the strongest singer. In those days, I didn't really know what I was doing. I don't think my voice had completely become, like, mature, like a real man or something. It took me really a very long time to find, my own voice and all of that. And so I started to go back to voice lessons and all that about 4 years ago. And that's what, I realized that, it's there. And so that's why I started singing again.
Oh, fantastic.
Very cool.
Fantastic. Jeff, take the next one.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you a little bit about the recording process of that new single and your new music. What's it like in the studio working with Rouge again?
Well, we found this fantastic arranger, producer extraordinaire from he's Israeli, and he's just like, his name is Yaniv Kubai, and he just recreated the track in this very kind of Euro EDM kind of way. Yeah. And so what we did was we just sent the tracks around, and Diana flew in, COVID and all, with mask, all that came to Nashville, and she sang the lead vocal here. Maria sang hers in LA in her own studio, and Miriam sang hers upstate New York in her studio.
Nice.
So, but it just all came together, and we're just so happy with the way it sounds. I mean, it's like, it sounds like it's just like we're fresh as a daisy, just like we always did.
That's cool.
As the band reunited for the album re-releases, how daunting of a task was it to get into the studio and remaster these old albums from the past? Was it a daunting task for you at all?
Yes, it took a very long time because we had to send it to the special mastering lab where they had to bake the tapes, and anything could go wrong.
Yeah.
Like, overcooking cookies or something. It's like, oops, those, they're not really edible. We overcooked them. So they did an expert job.
Yeah.
And then they had to transfer it all to digital format and then master it from there. So it was a process. It took a few months to get it, just right.
Yeah, it turned out great.
Yes, it did. Fantastic.
And, recreating the album covers and all of that.
Yeah.
So, I'm working with a company in Sicily called Waterhouse Entertainment, and they did an incredible job, like, reimagining the album covers. And, so we were very happy with that.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, very nice. I was reading, because we saw Miriam, Maria, and Diana.
Yeah, Miriam Valley, Maria Vidal, and Diana Griselli.
And who were some of the hired musicians?
Well, are you talking about for the
That played the music.
Well, are you talking about originally?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, on the
Back in
original
the day?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can barely remember. But they were just a help. What do I care? No, actually, that on Runners in the Night we worked with G.E. Smith.
Yeah, that's what we were.
And Jesus, it was just it was so amazing working with him because he brought this very cool punk edge to what we were doing. And, it really rocked up our sound. And he toured with us. And, all the cast from Saturday Night Live used to come to our shows. So that's where he met Gilda Radner and married her.
Oh, cool.
And then Gilda asked the girls in Rouge to be on stage with her at the Winter Garden Theater, where she had a very long, fantastic run of her show called Gilda Live from New York.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then that was turned into a documentary film by Mike Nichols called Gilda Live. And so if you go and see that, there they are.
Oh, cool.
Like, so much fun because they play, Bulgarian gymnasts and, high school girls. And, I mean, they have all these characters that are like her comic foils, but they do musical numbers. So it's really, really a lot of fun. So, as far as the musicians on it, I can't, it's sort of a blur to me, but Paul Schaefer played piano. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
On our first album?
It's fantastic.
And we had, just the best top studio musicians that there were.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That which leads to the next question I have for you. I was able to see G.E. Smith perform with Hall & Oates, also perform with Bob Dylan on the Oh Mercy tour. That being said, is what such a broad spectrum of playing ability that G.E. Smith brings to the stage. How was it working with him? I know you said he kind of brought that punk element to it, but I mean, this guy plays all styles. Was it something that when he came to perform and participate with you and the rest of the band, was it one of those kind of things where you had to kind of tame him down a little bit, or how did it work out?
No, we wanted everybody to be as extremely themselves as possible. Because we had this idea that if everybody was performing on stage at max, then the whole stage would explode, and that's how it was. I mean, we did the bottom line. We had lines around the block. We had fist fights in the lines. I mean, it was just fantastic. And G.E. Smith, he's a genius, first of all.
Absolutely.
And he was so pure, so true. I mean, he dressed in like old, like from the 40s, like these gray suits, and he had like a brush cut and like almost like a Fuller Brush man from the 50s or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had all his luggage was like old leather luggage with these straps inside, and his shirts were all like perfectly laundered and ironed and starched, and it was like he was like living his own movie. And we just absolutely loved it. And he brought magic to Desmond Child and Rouge.
Nice. Oh, fantastic. Go ahead, Jeff. You want to take the next one?
Yeah, so you guys formed in 1975, and your albums came out in, I believe it was 1979. What was that? Where were you guys playing as far as you were from New York, right? So what clubs were you guys playing live in?
Well, I'm originally from Miami Beach, and Maria was from Homestead, and Diana was from Kendall, and we all met at Miami-Dade South,
Gotcha.
Where we were going to college. And then for my third year of college, I came up to NYU, and Maria, who was my girlfriend at the time, and Diana, and then Miriam I knew from before when I was traveling around the country, when I had dropped out of high school and went up to Woodstock, New York. So I knew her from that. And so, we played every little dive. I mean, we played a place called the Limelight where they had one microphone for the four of us to share.
Nice.
So, and it didn't, the microphone stand didn't even like turn towards like, how it like have an arm like so that the keyboardist can like sing. No, they had to kind of like hold the mic in front of my face for me to sing my parts, and then when it came to their parts, the three of them would jump in. And so this place was called the Limelight, and it was on Christopher Street, and it was pretty much like this kind of dance hall, like gay dance hall. So there weren't really tables or anything. People were just standing around, and we were in the middle of the dance floor, and it was crazy. But we got discovered there by Elliot Hubbard, who owned the chicest club in New York called Reno Sweeney. And he fell in love with us and asked us to come and play as an opening act for various acts like Ellen Green, Kathy Chamberlain, Michael Federal. And we also were there on Monday nights, which was the showcase night. So we were playing there on weekends when we were opening act, but we'd also play on the showcase night and test out our new songs. So being a part of that family, I mean, Allie Willis was the coat check girl. She was a little bit older than us, but she was just completely like out of a 1940s movie also. And Melissa Manchester was playing there. Peter Allen was playing there. And the place was full of like, they had like a fancy room that we could never walk into because we didn't have the money for it. So we just stayed in the front room, and we could watch the shows sideways from the bar because the stage was on the other side. But, there'd be Jackie Onassis, there'd be, Henry Kissinger and his wife, and all the elite, Andy Warhol, all these people were there. And we were like young and rubbing shoulders with like the most famous people, most photographed people in the world. Mm. And so it gave us a feeling like, yeah, when you see somebody that's on that level and you see them in the flesh, you go, well, they're not so different than me. I can be famous too, And so we just, had the most amazing time, and that's where we got signed to Capitol Records by an A&R guy named Richard Landis, who was a young A&R guy, and, Capitol was kind of based in the Capitol building in Capitol Records building, that round disc building in L.A. So we were a New York act, and actually the label really didn't know what to make of us because we were, singing, to these like R&B dance beats. And we were using rock guitars, and we were telling stories that weren't like music that was being sung in R&B was more like sexual music.
Right.
We were kind of singing about relationships. We're telling stories.
Yeah.
Audie, the skateboard king.
Yeah.
That
was one of the ones I had
West Side Powwow. All these things, and we were kind of a little bit ahead of our time, because we'd go into a record store and we'd get so mad that we'd see our records in the disco bin. It's like, we're a rock band. What are they talking about? But, it was like we were stereotyped, and nobody kind of really understood how unique we were, and we didn't either.
Yeah.
And so I think that was one of the things that happened after all that success, all in 1 year, because the same year I had co-written a song with Paul Stanley, who was one of our fans, actually, that would come and hang out with us. And that song turned out to be I Was Made for Loving You.
Yeah.
And that was 1979. So that was my first, global #1 song. And so I had that going for me. We put out 2 albums, because I don't know if you all had seen the documentary, the Bee Gees documentary called How Do You Mend a Broken Heart?
Yes.
And, how they talk about how this DJ, I don't remember his name, but he hated disco music. So he created like this kind of like Nazi record burning thing at sports arenas, and people would come and take their Donna Summer records and their Bee Gees records and then burn them in a big pile.
Oh, no.
And it was really very racist, and it was homophobic, and and so from one day to the next, R&B music was over, gone, not played in the record. But it did open the door for 80s rock.
It did.
Yeah.
And so then other people began, kind of combining the way that we did, like Prince, Madonna, Michael Jackson, George Michael, the Eurythmics. They were kind of combining rock and dance, and kind of like in an hour, in a kind of like a separate lane. And so meanwhile, because at the end of our run, Maria and I broke up. There was a lot of pressure on our relationship, plus the fact that I realized I was more gay than I was bi. So it wasn't, as I was maturing into a man, I wasn't like, being my authentic self. So that kind of helped to break up the band. And then we all started pursuing our solo careers, and Maria had a hit with a song called Body Rock, and she made albums on her own, and everybody tried to do their own thing. And so to make a living, because I'd had success with Kiss, I started getting calls from, bands like Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, Joan Jett, Alice Cooper, Michael Bolton, and Cher, of course.
Yeah.
And I started having a string of hits, one after the other. And so that kind of brought me into a place where I was being successful working with other people rather than on my own music. And I sort of lost my own kind of path as an artist.
Yep.
But at the same time, I wouldn't have co-written all the songs that I did had I been a solo artist. I would have, I wouldn't have written them. I would have written who knows what, maybe not as good, and not have been as successful. I don't know. It was the kind of what the chemistry that I brought into the situation of whatever band I was working with. I became almost the 5th or 6th member.
Yeah.
For the time that we were writing songs for those records, like Slippery When We're Wet and New Jersey and Permanent Vacation, and with Joan Jett, Up Your Alley. It was like a very magical time. But, like things are cyclical. At the end of the 80s, this new band from Seattle called Nirvana hit. And from one day to the next, all the bands I was working with became legacy acts. And, except for Bon Jovi, it was very hard for any of them to have hits again. Aerosmith kept going, and I worked with them and Bon Jovi, but still, once that grunge period came in, it was like the same way that happened with R&B music at the end of the 70s. It was like, boom. It was, styles completely changed. The generation changed. And, I had put out my own record at the time called Discipline, which was more kind of 80s rock kind of style.
Yeah.
And, I was pretty much like told like, oh, well, you're finished. Your career is over. Like if you don't wear a kilt and army boots and have a nose ring and green hair, you're not going to work, man. So it was around that time that I was thinking, wow, and I heard some kind of Bon Jovi-ish sounding music, but the lead singer had a kind of a twang, and it was Garth Brooks. And I said, oh my God, that could be a place for me. And so that's when I came to Nashville for the first time, 1991.
Okay.
And I tracked down this female songwriter that co-wrote songs with Garth Brooks, because I got in my head that I wanted to have Garth Brooks cut one of my songs. And the very first song I wrote here, called Where Your Road Leads, she got it cut by Garth, and it was a duet with Trisha Yearwood. And it was that song that got them to fall in love and then destroyed 2 marriages, and, the rest is history. It worked out.
Yeah.
Worked out.
Yeah.
I kind of want to press rewind a little bit. And this is kind of a more of a generalized question. Artists always kind of have that I'm not satisfied with the end product of the album they just recorded after it's been mastered and what have you. As far as, what are your thoughts as far as comparison of satisfaction of when Desmond Child and Rouge released the first 2 albums, and then years later when you remaster them? Can you kind of, is there a way of compare and contrast how you felt from the original recordings being released till now the remastered versions? What is your thoughts on that?
Well, the first album, we had taken a year to record it, and it was, very unique unto itself. And we weren't self-conscious. We were just doing what was in our heart. We weren't trying to match a radio style or thinking about hits or any of that. We thought we were being artistes, and our first single, though, got traction, Our Love Is Insane. And then, it was like the idea, that was the turning point. And then R&B music died because we had a lot of blue-eyed soul in our music. So we changed course, and I wrote the songs on Runners in the Night in 30 days. And then we recorded it, performed it, sung it, mixed it in another 28 days. Because the record company was saying, well, we can't get you played on the radio, so you're going to have to do rock. And we wanted to anyway, because when we were out on the road, the songs that people, were jumping up and down had like rock guitars. So we said, okay, let's make a rock record. But it was kind of an artsy rock record, because I was also being very autobiographical, talking about my coming out.
Yeah.
And the first song is called The Truth Comes Out. And it was a song to Maria about, the secret life that I had, with strangers in the dark and all this kind of stuff. And, the album is very intense, very emotional, very personal. But, still the label that was like putting out Bob Seger and Taste of Honey, they didn't understand us because they weren't from New York. They didn't understand our New York cool that we had. So without that support, and, with us kind of on a personal level, Maria and I were the ones that held everything together, and us kind of separating emotionally as like the, husband and wife team that put it all together. It was very hard to continue. So now listening to everything, it was like, oh my God, we were really great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like, even like now, it's like writing a song with an artist. It's like, I can write a song for 3 or 4 days. In Nashville, you're not meant to write a song more than 3 hours on that one day. If you don't have it, that's it. No one ever comes back to it. No one works on it. No one tries. Nobody perfects anything. And so, to me, it's like, I don't understand that. Maybe that's why, I don't work a lot in country music. I mean, I wrote yesterday with Marty Fredrickson and Randy Houser, an established, incredible, very deep-sounding country singer. And we started a song, and we the producer said, "Oh, we want like a positive lyric anthem." I mean, that's what everyone has always said from the beginning of time, right? Give us a positive song, no more sad songs. And so we did that. And then we were getting ready to go downstairs to put it down. And then Marty started playing a guitar riff, and we started, fooling around with the title and this and that. All of a sudden, we had a second song, and then now we're going to go finish it, like in a couple of days. But it's, that song's better than the first one, because it took a minute for us to form our bond and our, threesome together, with the chemistry between us and the trust, because, Marty's coming from rock, I'm coming from, everything. And this poor country guy is like, what am I going to do with these people? But he loved it, By the end, he was like having a ball. So, that's how it goes. But what my point is that you end up having to abandon each song. You think it's done, and you realize, I could have maybe done this more to it or that more to it. You can't go on forever. You have to finish things, or abandon the song and move on to the next song, and hope for the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jeff, take the next one.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you a little bit about your writing style, as far as how you come up with your ideas. Do you come up with a song title first, or do you kind of have a chorus running in your head, or how does it work for you?
Well, I think the strongest way to write a song is to have an idea of what the song is about, and walking in with a title that has irony, the song writes itself. Like a song like You Give Love a Bad Name.
Yeah.
Love, how can love be bad? And then the listener's like, well, tell me, how can love be bad? And, then you find out, she's a bad girl and he's a good boy, and,
Yeah.
she's got blood red nails on her fingertips and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, other songs I've written that with that kind of intention is like, Heaven's on fire.
Yeah.
Heaven on fire. How can heaven be on fire? I hate myself for loving you. How can you, hate yourself for loving something? It's like the title has a magic irony, contrast of opposites. And those songs have really worked for me.
Yeah.
Dude looks like a lady. How can a dude be a lady? It's like, explain that to me. Walked into a bar on the show. Her picture graced the grime on the door. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I kind of wanted to switch gears on you. You'll be releasing your autobiography, Desmond Child Living on a Prayer. Big songs, big life. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the daunting task of writing an autobiography?
Well, I was reading the New York Times, and I saw a review of an unauthorized autobiography of Aretha Franklin called Respect. And I ordered the book, and the thing is like as big as a phone book. You know, it's like a Bible. And it was written by David Ritz. And just reading his style, and it's like I said, this guy's for me. Because I'd already got in my head that it was time to now put my sons are getting older, and I wanted to, you know, put down my life so someday maybe they'll read it and maybe get to know another side of me other than give me money. You know.
I know. I'm a teenager right now. I know that all too well.
Yeah, give me money, and can I borrow your car? It's like, what happened to your car? Well, it's out of gas. How can it be out of gas? Well, I forgot to look. Yeah. I mean, it's like nonstop, that stuff, right? Yeah. So I wanted to leave a legacy behind where they could see, you know, who I was and as a person. So I began this 4.5 years ago with David Ritz, and we've written the book all over the world. We wrote it in Greece, New York, L.A., Nashville, Miami. We went to all these different locations, and we would stay for a week, and just, you know, he'd ask me questions, and I'd give him the answers, and then as soon as we finished the session, he would send it to his transcriber, and then it would come back that same night, and he would be working on it that night. The next morning, he would show me what was written, and I would say, no, I wouldn't put it that way. It really should say this, and I forgot to say this, and went on and on and on and on and on like that, until finally we had to abandon the book. And it's ready. It's really pretty much ready to go. So, you know, but new things are happening. So I keep saying, well, I have to put in the part about me working with Barbra Streisand. And it's like, okay. So we wrote a last chapter about my writing a song for Barbra Streisand called Lady Liberty. And it's like really one of the greatest things I've done, because it's first of all, it's solely written, and I've written so little by myself since I started working with bands and artists. So I went back to my core, and I wrote this. It's really a very inspired song. So if anybody hears this, go to Barbra Streisand Lady Liberty lyric video. Oh, okay. We made this lyric video last fall for, you know, in time for the election. And we, you know, very proud of it. And it's like, you know, what gay guy wouldn't want to have a song of his, you know, sung by Barbra Streisand? That's just, you know,
right.
It's like, that's the ultimate. It doesn't get better than that,
right.
You know? And so she's the greatest singer of all time. I mean, just absolutely is and still is. And she grabbed my song, and in 2 takes, she had it. It was like, and then she walked out, and then that was it. And then I comped the two tracks together, and then she came back the next day and, you know, kind of gave me a high fist thing, you know, like we bumped fists. And she, you know, I was, you know, I was, you know, the way that I am, you know, very forceful. So at the end, you know, I mean, she was kind of calling me like, oh, you're a slave driver, you're a taskmaster. So when she said goodbye to me, you know, and she's not really a hugger, but she gave me this big hug and looked up at me and she said, you're a pain in the ass, and I commend you.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
So I'm going to have that like carved in my gravestone. Yes. No joke.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That pretty much says it all about me.
So, you know, we've spoke to other artists who've written books, and it never fails that they feel like they've left out certain aspects of whatever subject matter that they didn't feel like, you know, at the time was pertinent, but now they look back on it, it's like, oh, I wish I would have included that in my novel. You know, how, as far as that goes for you, do you feel like some things have took like the back seat, or like if you could kind of do it over again, would you know, touch on other things?
Well, I mean, David would, you know, like, you know, kind of grab me and roll me back on land, you know, and, you know, from the precipice of like, you know, oversharing. Because, you know, I have gripes. I do. And, you know, he would look at me and he said, I love the story, but nobody's going to care about that. It's like, really? No. And so, okay. So, there's some things I'm going to have to take to my grave, because it's not for public consumption.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot is, I really, reveal a lot of my personal feelings, especially about, my relationship with my mother, who was a songwriter, also very competitive. And she was kind of a narcissist, and she was, hard to deal with. But she was a genius herself as a poet and a songwriter, and I've been spending the last year compiling all of her poems, because she was always saving everything for her book, her big book. So I'm making the big book,
Cool.
and it's like I'm reading her poetry, and it's like so great and so sophisticated, and I'm starting to see her, who she was, for the first time, not just my annoying mother. But I'd like, she lived like a block away when we were in Miami, and I'd go into the house, to make a phone call or the bathroom or something. And I'd come back, she was in the control room with Ricky Martin pitching her own songs. I came in one day, he had tears rolling down his face because she'd written a song called Diosa del Mar, like a, goddess of the sea, like a tribute to Puerto Rico. The guy was sobbing, That's what I mean. It's like she waited, in the bushes to watch me, finally leave the studio, and then she snuck in.
Fantastic.
It was a bit like, I Love Lucy, like Lucy, no, it was like one of those situations.
Oh, so cool.
But, I did have a very difficult childhood. She was a single mom, and she worked odd jobs, and then at night she'd be in nightclubs trying to, get her songs cut. And, I was kind of a latchkey child living in the projects of, I don't know if you saw a movie called Moonlight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the projects where I was brought up in Liberty City, Miami.
Okay.
And, it was a rough place to grow up, but the beauty of it in a way was in the playground, it was all mixed race, and we were playing R&B stations. And that's where I got all this R&B in my system, And so you never know, like in the end, like things that seem like unfortunate can become a plus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, my book, is sweeping. I mean, it not only tells my story, but it goes back and tells the story of my family in Cuba and my father, being Hungarian and fighting in World War II. And, it has all of this kind of very cinematic stuff and how they met. And she was married to someone else and, just has their kind of star-crossed lovers and all that kind of stuff. And then my own story. And then you can see, why I am the way that I am. And, I think in the end, I think I'm a good mentor and a good teacher. And my book is, like that in a way. It's showing people what it means to be an artist and the sacrifices you have to make and the drive you have to be successful the way I've been. Because I always, no matter what, I wanted to be able to take care of my mother. Yeah. And as soon as I made it with KISS, I put her in a beautiful condo on Miami Beach, bought her all new clothes, new car, new everything. She wasn't allowed to bring one piece of broken furniture, nothing. She went from, just rags to like Elizabeth Taylor. She lived like a queen. And I made sure that, she always did. And, to the very end, she was very, very well taken care of.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, Jeff, you take the next one.
I guess I don't know if I really have a question, but just more of a reminiscent a little bit. So as a teenager, I sat. My thing, like a lot of kids that were my age, were to sit around and look at the liner notes of the albums and the cassettes at that time, pre-CD. And so I'd be looking and I'd be listening to my new Bon Jovi or my new Kiss, or I was into Alice Cooper and Aerosmith, and I kept seeing this name Desmond Child. And I'm like, who is this guy? And that was back before before internet and when people were a mystery. And I guess I got to pick.
It was better that way.
Yes, it definitely was, because I was like, who is this guy? He writes these amazing songs. And 30 years later, I didn't know I would be talking to you tonight. This is awesome.
Well, I turned 67, but I feel like I'm still the same person as always. I feel I have the same drive. Tomorrow I'm going to be working with Dan Auerbach from the Black Keys, and he's inviting me into a session. And I don't know what it's about. He just said, "Hey, want to come write?" I said, "Yes." Nice. I never turned down a gig.
Yeah,
never.
Yeah.
You never know. Like this song that I have out now, Ava Max, it's like out of the blue. And I got called from ASCAP today. I don't know if I'm supposed to reveal this, but they said that I won one of the songwriting awards for this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Cool. Yeah,
fantastic.
And before that, I had a song with Zed in EDM called Beautiful Now. And before that, I had Katy Perry, Waking Up in Vegas. So I officially now, with Kings and Queens, have a #1 song in 6 decades.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
that's cool.
70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010s, now 2020s. So I'm good till 2030. Then I have to have another #1, okay?
And you don't plan on
keep them coming.
you don't plan on retiring anytime soon, right?
No, I love I'm going to die with my boots on, man. I'm going to die, it's like I want to keep working and still be an active participant in life and in the music business. And also I've gotten into television producing, and I have ideas for movies. I've been working on 3 musicals for Broadway when Broadway comes back.
Yeah.
And it's like I have all these different collaborators that do all these different things, and it's like one Zoom after the other all day long, and I couldn't be happier.
Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
that's cool.
All right, so I'm totally going to switch gears on you now. Are you ready? So one of my favorite projects you were involved with was the Dudes of Wrath. It was a band formed strictly for the Shocker soundtrack.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about the project, your work with Paul Stanley?
Well, I got asked to do it by Shep Gordon, Alice Cooper's manager, who was co-producing this movie Shocker, Wes Craven's Shocker. And so they put me in there, and then they wanted me to record No More Mr. Nice Guy with Megadeth. And Dave Mustaine, who was not in good shape in those days.
Right.
And, they promised me the guy was clean, and because I was very kind of strict about those things. And, he wasn't, he really wasn't. But he was pushed by the label because they needed something to come out, from him. So I think, it was like one of those kind of showbiz things where they push people too far, and they, he didn't get a chance to heal and recover and all that kind of stuff. And so, that's how that came together, and I got to produce Iggy Pop. And there was another group from New Jersey called Soraya, and we had a song called Timeless Love. And then I decided to put a kind of super group together and call it the Dudes of Wrath. And Paul Stanley was so sweet and helped me to do it and helped me, make calls and get, Rudy Sarzo, and I think it was Tommy Lee on drums, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it just, it was like Paul sang, and played rhythm guitar. I sang some, and we did a couple songs, and so it was really fun because it was, to me, it was like I've always loved bringing people together. For the Alice Cooper record Trash, I had all these hits with these other artists, and Alice hadn't had a hit in a long time, so I wanted to bring everybody into it. So I got Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, Joan Jett. He brought in Kip Winger and Kane Roberts, and we made it was like a barn raising. It was kind of like everybody contributed something, and the album sold 4 million records plus.
Yeah.
And his previous record to that had sold 15,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I keep joking with Alice like we should make Trash 2.
Yeah.
You should.
But I kind of said it jokingly, in some kind of Instagram thing, and everyone went crazy thinking it was really going to happen. And so he actually made a commercial that says, "Stop talking trash." We have Detroit. What's the name of his album now? It's
Detroit Stories.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Detroit Stories. Stop talking trash. It's like, but actually I have a single that I asked him to, guest on. It's my own personal, single. And, that's going to be revealed. I want to find a movie for it or something.
Yeah.
So it's cool. But it gave me the idea that maybe that should be the centerpiece of Trash 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There I am, stirring it up again. Trash 2.
Fantastic.
And that I also that I told you about that Studio 54.
Mm-hmm.
It was called 54 Below. It's a little nightclub under the original Studio 54. Yeah. And we made a live album, and it's called Desmond Child Live. And there I sang a lot of the songs that I had had as hits with that I collaborated on with other people, and then some original songs and all that. So there is an actual live album that I actually kicked everything off with, the fall before last.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm really lucky, that I have a label that is just letting me do whatever I want, and they don't ask me any questions, and they're happy, that I'm part of the BMG family. So, I'm really, very, very lucky. I have a fantastic manager that I've been with for 40-something years. I have a fantastic husband that I've been with 33 years, Curtis, and our sons are 18 years old, and they're in college now. They're twins. And, everybody that I have with me, it's been with me for decades and decades. And we're a family, and I feel the responsibility to make sure that I'm, successful, because I always felt that, taking care of my mom, but, I have to take care of all these other people too. Have to keep, the studio going. I have to keep my engineers working. I have to, keep my production manager managing productions.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing that people in Washington don't really understand.
They don't.
They think that we write a song and we get a corn cob pipe and put a banjo on our knee and sit out in front of our little wooden porch, and that's our overhead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
And when they come in and, they suppress the streaming rates, and, they don't let us, really compete as the rest of the world is competing. And it's so unfair. And so that's one of the reasons why I joined the board of ASCAP, because I go out there, and I've been with ASCAP 42 years, and I go out there and work those halls of Congress and try to explain that, we are the smallest form of businessman, a songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then in order for us to do anything, even produce a record, we have to spend, $2,000 on the on negotiating the deal, because everything's like from scratch. You know, we have to there's no set anything for us. We're just like riding the rough riding.
Yep.
And we don't have like a producers union. We don't have a songwriters union. You know, we really, you know, it's not in our nature, you know, to be thinking about those things. We want to make music. We want to think about art. We want to be thinking about high and lofty things. But to get down in there and explain to a congressman and all that never even, understood what writing a song meant, that we need protections and all that. That's important too.
Yeah,
it is.
Definitely.
It is. And it's so ironic that you say that with everything that's going on right now. What are your thoughts? Why isn't there a union for songwriters? Why isn't there a union for producers and engineers? Why is that not available?
I don't know. I think it's because the way the business set up, we compete against each other. You know, so and it's what the market will bear in many ways. So with production, so producers are usually studio rats, and the last thing on their mind is to go to a meeting, and meet with other producers who are their competitors, and say, hey, we need to have some standards, so that, we just, don't get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
but it's like, it needs to happen. It should happen.
Absolutely.
Because so much money is wasted. Every time you do a contract, you have to start from scratch. And everybody's contract is different. And also the labels insist that we make our contract with the artist. So if anything goes wrong, we have to go to the artist and sue them. The person that you want to keep as your friend so that they'll invite you to work on their next record.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it is really something.
It is. It is. Okay, so I have two more questions for you before we let you go. I know we've talked your ear off, but we had Jean Beauvoir on a few years ago, and I know you fantastic,
love him.
Fantastic man. You collaborated with him on the Shocker soundtrack. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Prior to working with him on the Shocker soundtrack, had you collaborated with him in any other? And afterwards, have you collaborated with him?
No, but we always ran into each other at Jonas Ackerland's pre-Grammy night parties, and he'd always be there, and we'd say, "Oh, we got to get together." And even this year, we've been, kind of texting, and I think we had one conversation, but it just hasn't come together. And I would love to work with him. He's just so inspired and such a great musician, and just love him.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, I think we're onto something here. I think we've opened the Pandora's box. So, okay, one last question. We've had many artists on, especially lately. We had this discussion opposed to releasing singles, opposed to releasing full-length albums, or opposed to releasing like a 5-song or 6-song EP. It seems like we're kind of going backwards in time when the releasing of the 45 was the primary, tangible product as far as music goes, and then album-oriented rock came out. Where are you at in your thoughts on releasing singles opposed to releasing a full-length album or a 5-song EP? I guess where's the money at? Where does it best suit today's market? How do you am I making sense?
Yes, absolutely. Well, the way the business got set up, the only easy money or the mother lode and all that is to have performance royalties. But you have to be the single. You have to be the hit to make anything. Before, you could have like a song on a kind of a Willie Nelson record and not have it be a hit, and you could live, for 10 years off of the one song. But that's not the way it is now.
Right.
So to me, what happens is you start creating differently. You start creating in the Shark Tank of what's going to give you the advantage, sonically, lyrically, and it's really creating some amazing, people making incredible records, that are, I'm like astounded. And I'm really happy to hear like people like The Weeknd, like his new sound is like the 80s. It sounds so cool with synths and things and very melodic. And, Bruno Mars is that way too. And I love all of that, the, real R&B influenced stuff. And, rather than just purely urban, which is much more linear. And I think that, it's one of those things where, you stop thinking about, oh, well, we can write a song about this. It's like, no, that would never be a single, so you don't write that song. So the humanity is robbed of a song like Hallelujah, right? You would never exist. You would never write that song.
Exactly. Because,
Ariana Grande wouldn't sing it. And, she may sing that song in a television special.
Right.
Now, 50 years after the fact, after Leonard Cohen wrote it, or Bob Dylan, or whoever, those classics. But right now, it's like, if you're not writing songs that go into the top 10, you're just a hobbyist. It's a hobby for you. So what does that do? It's the strong survive, the fight of the fittest, and it creates, it can create some fantastic things. And then when somebody is fresh and doing just things like, from the heart, like Billie Eilish or Halsey or Sia or, Adele, it's kind of cuts through everything because it has soul. And so that's where, that's the stuff I love listening to, in contemporary music. And because it's personal, it's emotional. And so I think that, just like even in Nashville, there's really only a handful of artists that sell, like 30 artists that sell. So to get onto one of those records, it's like you have to be part of either the production team or, marry the artist or do their hair or do something for that song to be heard, and then for them to like take it seriously and cut it and make it a hit. So people like Carrie Underwood, like who I produced when she was in American Idol, and all that. Well, she has her team, Hillary Lindsey and these amazing Josh Greer and all those incredible geniuses that are making her special kind of records. And so if you're not on the inside of that, you're not in it. You're not in the business. When I first got to Nashville in '91, there were 5,000 writers signed to publishing companies, large and small, within the 440 circle. That's this kind of highway that goes around.
Yeah.
And the last time I checked, there were like 250 signed writers between the big ones and the small ones. And so how do you, okay, so now we're down to 250, and they're all, let's say, each of them writing 3 songs a week. The 250. So now we're talking about, 1,000 songs in the market. For 30 artists to consider who don't always make records. They're like every 18 months or 2 years they make a record. And then, it's like, what kind of business is that? how can one survive?
You can't.
Then you have to be genius, like Shane McAnally. Then you have to be, and in pop, then you have to be genius, like Max Martin. Then that's survival of the fittest. That's, those are the geniuses. They figure it out. So it's not that casual. It's like, it's war. And you have to fight hard, and you have to be after the people that you write songs with, and stay friendly with them, and call them up and say, hey, did you demo the song we wrote? Did you cut the song we wrote? Did it make it onto the record? And then they go, oh shit, I forgot about that song. Oh, I better do it because I don't want Desmond or Diane Warren mad at me. So then you have to constantly be nudging to make sure you stay on the horse. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like it's deadly serious. Because let's say you can be a studio rat and be living in a crap apartment in LA with no parking. You just have to, take Ubers everywhere, and that's all great. But once you meet somebody, and then they want to have children, and then they want to have a life, you can't stay there anymore like that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then what do you do? And so it's a serious issue, because one of the problems is that our educational system and government does not support the arts like it should.
It does not.
Does not help to train people to be great. So everybody just has to learn by the seat of their pants. They learn how to play instruments by ear. No one can read music. No one has a rich history, knows the history of music in a rich way. And they just listen to scraps of things, and then they try to, pick up little pieces and put them together and make a nest out of it. And that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So, I've been co-writing a book called The Anatomy of a Hit, Masterclass in Songwriting with Jody Marr, who, co-wrote and produced Mika, songs like Grace Kelly, and she's a professor at Belmont, and she's one of my dearest, oldest friends. And we've been working on what we think will be the ultimate college textbook on songwriting.
Fantastic.
Because it doesn't exist. I mean, you'll find some like biographies of songwriters, and they'll give you a few little tidbits, and then they mainly talk about all the people they married and divorced. And when they met Elvis, in Vegas or something. But, we really are going to break it down and make a real resource book where it talks about everything, the business of music, the copyright laws, and we're going to drill down on 12 of my biggest hits. And, because everything's in chapters of 12. So, I'm very serious about, educating people. I've been doing the rock and roll fantasy camp, and we did a masterclass in songwriting, and it was so much fun. And they've invited me to come back because I had put out there a challenge. I think somebody came up with this title, Fix My Fate. And I said, wait a second, fix my fate. Okay, everybody that's on this call, on this Zoom or whatever it was, has to write a song called Fix My Fate. And so that's the Fix My Fate challenge. Because you can the title is good, because how can you fix fate? It has irony, like what I was telling about, and it has alliteration, the two F's, fix my fate. And so that song could be, a sad song, could be a funky song, could be a punk song, could be rock, could be power ballad, it could be could be a country song. Fix my fate, could be like really twanged up, and we're going to do it, and I want to hear what people did. And I think putting out challenges like that is fun, because you drill down on each version and say, why does this work, or why doesn't it work? And I think people learn that way, and then they don't waste time writing songs that can never go anywhere.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, we're out of questions. We've wasted enough of your time for tonight. We want to thank you so much.
It wasn't a waste. I love talking about my favorite subject, me.
Well, here's how it's going to work. We have about 3 episodes ahead of yours that we have to be released before yours. So we're looking about 2.5 weeks before we release this episode. But anyway, back to what I was going to say is I was talking to Brian on the phone on Monday, and I said to him, I was like, well, if Desmond truly enjoys this interview, and we obviously haven't scratched the surface of all the stuff that you've done, would you be privy to doing a part 2 with us maybe in a month and a half to 2 months from now? Is that a possibility at all?
Yeah, let's do it when my book comes out.
Yeah, what are we talking
about?
It'll
be part of my book tour.
Yeah, fantastic. What do we talk about as far as a date goes? Do you have any idea?
I don't know. We're figuring that out now because I decided to publish it myself through Amazon and Ingram. So, they can turn a book around in 6 weeks. So the book is done, and we're starting to look at the galleys and doing the editing and all that. So it'll probably take like 3 months. About 3 months.
So you think maybe ask Brian maybe come around, I don't know, June or something like that?
Yeah. The only thing I ask is that, maybe you can tell people like, in the sign in and the sign off to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram, I'm Desmond.Child, because I'm like crazy into that Instagram. I'm like working that Instagram. I have like 230,000 followers.
Absolutely.
And I've been working on it. I had like 7,000 followers 3 years ago. And so I'm constantly working on animations and pictures, and Desmond Child and Rouge also has their own site. And the beauty of that is that you time travel to 1979. And even our bios don't go past that.
Oh, cool.
We didn't do anything past that. We just exist then.
Oh, nice.
And we have gorgeous pictures and animations and all this kind of stuff of the 4 of us. So check it out.
Oh, fantastic. Is there anything else that we forgot or we left out for you to plug and promote before we let you go?
Well, also, I encourage people to go to Amazon or iTunes and watch our 12-year-in-the-making documentary called Two, The Story of Roman and Nyro.
Yeah.
TWO, and Nyro is NYRO, like Laura Nyro. And it's the story of my husband and I wanting to have a family and the journey we took to create Roman and Nyro. And when they were around 9 years old, they narrated the film, and it's really great.
Oh, cool.
We won a lot of awards and everything. So watching that film, you'll know everything you ever wanted to know about me and didn't want to.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I got to tell you, Jeff and I, we were like totally giddy for this interview.
Yeah.
And, we interview all kinds of people all the time. We're going, we got Desmond Child on. This is crazy. He's going to come on to our podcast tonight. This is insane.
Well, it's funny too because like my son and my wife, they're more into the pop, more into the modern stuff, like Ava Max, and so normally like Eric and I are talking rock and roll and all this stuff, and my son's like, Dad, when are you going to get somebody on that I like? and so I played that Ava Max for him. I'm like, well, you know this song, don't you? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, we're interviewing him tonight, and he was excited.
Great. Well, thank you so much for thinking of me and asking me on the show, and talking my favorite subject, me.
Absolutely.
Me.
So in 3 weeks, we'll have this out, and I should send the link to Brian.
Okay, it's all good, man.
All right,
it's all good. I trust your judgment.
Yeah.
And make it the best you can, and we'll see you next round when we go to promote Living on a Prayer, Big Songs, Big Life.
Yeah, we look forward to that.
Fantastic. And like I said, I'll send this to Brian as soon as it's ready for human consumption. How about that?
All right, perfect.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Take care.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
just can't do it here. Hey. Everybody eyes the gun and screams inside their head. Everybody bites their tongue and pays their bills instead. Hide in the spotlights, fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out